Calvin sat on his porch that Saturday morning, sipping his coffee while the sun stretched lazily across the neighborhood. It was one of those rare, peaceful mornings when the world seemed calm. Birds chirped, children's laughter carried faintly from down the street, and the smell of freshly cut grass lingered in the air. His little house, though modest, had become a sanctuary over the years, a place built not just with bricks, but with sacrifices. Every dollar he had earned from odd jobs, every late night fixing cars and doing construction work had gone into making this house a home. For Calvin, it wasn't just a building. It was the proof that despite his struggles, he could stand tall, that life hadn't defeated him. But peace never lingers too long. As he leaned back in his chair, 3 black SUVs rolled slowly into the neighborhood, their engines rumbling low like predators circling prey. The vehicle stopped right in front of Calvin's gate, and immediately, unease swept across the block. Curtains shifted as curious neighbors peeked out from behind them. Children stopped playing and watched in silence. Even the birds seemed to sense something was wrong, their chirping abruptly fading. Calvin set his cup down, his instincts sharp now. Something about the way those SUVs moved, deliberate and synchronized, screamed trouble. The doors opened, and out stepped men in dark suits, their sunglasses reflecting the sunlight, faces stern and unreadable. Their presence was heavy, suffocating, like a storm cloud hovering over one house alone. The tallest one, who seemed to be their leader, walked ahead with the confidence of a man used to commanding fear. He pulled out a folder, flipping it open theatrically, then barked, "Mr. Calvin, you are hereby ordered to vacate this property immediately. This land does not belong to you anymore. If you resist, you will face consequences." Calvin's heart skipped. He stood up slowly, trying to steady his breathing. "What do you mean? This is my home. I paid for this house with my own money. I've lived here for years." His voice was firm, though inside he felt the tremor of uncertainty. The man smirked as if he had already won. "We are from a federal housing authority. There has been an audit, and it shows this property was acquired illegally. You have no legal right to be here. Now, pack your belongings. You have 10 minutes. The crowd of neighbors that had begun to gather gasped. Whispers broke out among them like wildfire. Could it be true? Did Calvin cheat the system? One neighbor muttered, "I knew something was off. He never seemed like the type who could afford a house like this." Another shook her head, whispering, "But he's always been kind. Could they be mistaken?" Calvin felt his stomach tighten. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but the way the man spoke, so confident, so official, planted seeds of doubt even in his own heart. He clenched his fists, trying to summon courage. "Show me the proof," he demanded. "If you claim I don't own this house, then show me the documents." The imposter chuckled coldly and pulled out a paper, holding it high enough for the neighbors to see, but not close enough for Calvin to grab. It looked official, stamped, sealed, signed. "Here is the eviction order authorized by the state. You have been illegally occupying federal land. If you resist, we have full authority to remove you by force." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People who had once smiled at Calvin at the grocery store now stared at him with suspicion and fear. The betrayal stung like fire. "After all the times I helped them, this is how quickly they doubt me?" he thought bitterly. Trying to stay calm, Calvin took a deep breath. "If you truly are officials, then I'll call the local police myself to verify. Until then, you're not stepping inside my house." The leader's tone hardened. "We don't need the local police. We are the authority. And if you call them, you'll be making a big mistake. People like you end up behind bars for resisting federal orders. Think carefully, Calvin. Don't throw your life away over a house." The neighbors gasped again. A woman in the crowd cried out, "Oh my God, he might really be a criminal." Another man shook his head, muttering, "We trusted him. I even let my kids play in his yard." Calvin's chest burned with anger and sorrow. He wanted to scream, to remind them all of the times he had been there for them, paying for groceries when someone came up short, fixing broken fences for free, helping kids with their homework. Yet none of it seemed to matter now. One accusation from a stranger in a suit had turned them all against him. The imposter stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Calvin could hear. "Listen carefully, old man. We know your history. You've struggled your whole life. You're not powerful. You're not wealthy. Nobody will believe you. Hand over the keys and walk away quietly. Save yourself the humiliation." Calvin looked into the man's eyes, cold and predatory, and something inside him snapped. He straightened his shoulders, refusing to be intimidated. "You picked the wrong man to bully," he said firmly. The impostor smirked again, raising his voice for everyone to hear. "So, you want to resist federal law? Fine, then you will face the consequences." He signaled to the others, and suddenly the suited men began marching toward the gate, as though ready to storm the house. The crowd gasped and backed away, terrified of what might happen next. Inside, Calvin's thoughts raced. His heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the murmurs. He wanted to fight back, but how? These men were strong, confident, backed by what looked like official authority. And worst of all, the neighbors, the people who had once looked at him with warmth, were now looking at him with suspicion and fear. Is this how quickly good deeds are forgotten? Is this how fragile trust is? But beneath the fear, there was a flame that whispered, "Stand your ground. This is your home. Truth will prevail." Calvin clenched his fists, ready for whatever came next.
The impostors stood at the gate like wolves circling prey, their sunglasses reflecting the morning light so no one could see their eyes. The leader tapped the paper against his palm, his tone sharp as he barked, "Final warning, Calvin. Step aside, hand over the keys, and save yourself the embarrassment. We don't need to drag you out in front of your neighbors." Calvin's knuckles whitened as he gripped the porch railing. His voice was calm, but every word carried fire. "This is my house. I've worked for it, I've bled for it, and no man with a fake paper is gonna take it from me." The leader's smirk faltered, but only for a second. He signaled with 2 fingers, and one of the suited men marched up the steps, towering over Calvin. "If you won't hand it over," the man growled, "we'll remove you ourselves." Gasps erupted from the crowd. A neighbor shouted, "Just give them the house, Calvin. Don't make this worse for yourself." Another muttered, "I knew it. He was living a lie this whole time." Each word from the neighbors was like a dagger in Calvin's chest. He looked at faces he had once considered family, people he had helped move furniture, people he had invited for dinners, and now their eyes were filled with doubt, judgment, even disdain. So this is how quickly loyalty fades. One accusation, and they forget everything? The suited man reached out as if to grab Calvin by the arm, but Calvin stepped back into the doorway, his voice suddenly booming with defiance. "Don't touch me. You want to take this house? You'll have to drag me out in front of the whole world." For a moment, silence blanketed the street. Even the impostors froze, surprised at his sudden roar of courage. The neighbors shifted uncomfortably, torn between fear of the authorities and the raw conviction in Calvin's voice. The leader narrowed his eyes, then leaned in close so only Calvin could hear. "Do you think they'll stand by you when this escalates? Look at them. They already believe us. To them, you're just a fraud, a liar, and soon you'll be homeless too." Calvin swallowed hard, fighting the knot in his throat. He could see the neighbors' faces, hesitant, whispering, pulling their children back as if he were suddenly dangerous. It broke him inside, but it also fueled his anger. "Believe what you want, but I won't be bullied out of my home." The impostor chuckled darkly and pulled out his phone. "Then we'll make it official. We'll call enforcement right now." He spoke loudly, deliberately, for the neighbors to hear. "Yes, officer, we've got a hostile occupant here refusing to vacate government property. Yes, we'll need backup immediately." He hung up with a triumphant smirk, as if victory was already his. The crowd gasped louder this time. "He called the police," a woman whispered. "Calvin's finished." Children clung to their parents, eyes wide with fear, as though Calvin himself had suddenly transformed into a criminal before their eyes. Calvin's heart hammered against his ribs. Panic threatened to drown him, but deep inside, that small flame of resolve refused to die. No, this is my home. I will not bend. He turned toward the crowd, his voice rising with desperate conviction. You all know me. You've seen me live here, work here, help this community. Do you really believe I stole this house? Do you truly think I'd lie to you all? His eyes searched theirs, pleading, but most looked away. Only a few seemed uncertain, torn between the official-looking men and the man they had known for years. The imposter cut him off sharply, waving the supposed document in the air. Don't listen to him. Criminals always claim innocence, but the law doesn't lie. We have the proof right here. The crowd murmured again, doubt solidifying in their faces. Calvin clenched his fists so tightly his nails dug into his palms. Rage and heartbreak warred inside him, rage at the impostors, heartbreak at the betrayal of people he once trusted. The impostors began advancing again, their footsteps heavy on the wooden porch. Calvin's body tensed, ready for a fight he knew he might not win. But in that moment, something deeper surged inside him, not just anger, but dignity. If I lose this house, I'll lose it fighting, not begging. Touch me, Calvin growled, his eyes burning, and the whole world will know you're nothing but liars. The impostors hesitated, sensing the unshakable resolve in his voice. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed the leader's face. The standoff continued, the air thick with tension, neighbors holding their breath as though the next second would decide everything. Calvin stood tall at the doorway, the impostors looming just a few steps away, and for the first time, it wasn't just about the house, it was about dignity, truth, and the refusal to be crushed by lies.
Minutes crawled by like hours. Calvin stood frozen at the doorway, eyes locked on the impostors who smirked as if victory were inevitable. Then, faint at first, came the sound of sirens in the distance. The neighbors stirred, whispers turning into a buzz of anticipation. "They're coming," someone muttered. "The truth will be revealed." But the way they said it, cold, almost gleeful, stabbed Calvin like a knife. They weren't praying for justice, they were eager for spectacle. The patrol car screeched to a halt in front of his house, lights flashing red and blue across the frightened faces of the onlookers. Two officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters, their boots striking the pavement with an authority that silenced the crowd instantly. The imposter leader straightened his suit and rushed forward, holding out the document with a theatrical sigh of relief. "Officers," he called, his voice dripping with false urgency. "Thank goodness you came. This man has been squatting in this property, refusing to leave. Here are the official papers proving the house belongs to us." He handed over the forged deed as though it were a sacred text. Calvin's chest heaved. He could feel dozens of eyes burning into him, already condemning, already whispering, "Fraud, liar, criminal." His knees threatened to buckle, but he gripped the frame of the doorway tighter, forcing himself to stand tall. One officer skimmed the paper, his brows furrowing slightly, then turned his sharp gaze to Calvin. "Sir, we need you to step outside." Gasps erupted from the neighbors. A child cried out, "They're arresting him." A woman whispered, "I knew it all along. He fooled us for years." Calvin's throat burned. Each word, each whisper from people he once fed, comforted, and protected was heavier than chains. "I am not stepping outside," Calvin said firmly, though his voice quivered with the weight of the moment. "This is my home. I've lived here for years. Ask anyone in this neighborhood. They've seen me maintain it, pay for it, protect it." He turned to the crowd, his eyes desperate. "Tell them. You know the truth. You've eaten at my table. You've celebrated birthdays under this roof. Stand with me now." But the crowd remained silent. Some looked down at their feet. Others shifted uneasily, unwilling to meet his gaze. A few even crossed their arms, siding with the impostors without a word. The silence was deafening. It wasn't just apathy. It was betrayal. The officer's expression hardened. "Sir, refusal to cooperate will only make things worse." If this paper is valid, you cannot remain here." The impostor smirked behind the officer, his victory practically glowing in his eyes. He whispered just loud enough for Calvin to hear, "Told you, even your own neighbors won't save you." Something inside Calvin cracked, but it wasn't his spirit. It was the last thread hope that people would fight for him. He straightened his back, voice thundering with a rawness that shook even the officers. "If you think a piece of forged paper makes this your house, then tear down these walls, rip apart these floors, and bury me beneath them, because I am not leaving, not today, not ever." The neighbors gasped. Even the children went silent. For a moment, the impostor's smirk faltered, because Calvin wasn't just a man defending a house anymore. He was a man defending his very soul. The officers glanced at his partner, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Something about Calvin's fire, his conviction, didn't fit the script of a guilty man. The partner hesitated, speaking quietly. "Maybe we should run the documents through the system first. Something feels off." The impostor stiffened, panic flashing for a split second before he masked it with another smug grin. "There's no need for delays," he insisted quickly. "The papers are clear. We just need him removed." But Calvin seized the moment. He stepped forward, chest rising and falling with rage and pain. "Run it. Run every line of it. Check every record, because while you've all been busy believing lies, I've been living the truth. And the truth always comes out." The crowd stirred again, but this time it wasn't all against him. A few neighbors who had remained silent began to exchange uncertain glances. Some whispered, "What if he's telling the truth? What if this is a mistake?" The seed of doubt spread, fragile but alive. The impostors saw it too. Their leader's jaw tightened as he hissed under his breath, "This isn't over." But for Calvin, it was a turning point. Though the storm hadn't passed and the battle was far from won, he had planted his feet so firmly in the ground that even lies couldn't uproot him. And for the first time that morning, as the flashing lights reflected in his determined eyes, he didn't feel like a man about to lose everything. He felt like a man who had already won something greater: his dignity.